But you sold you out. There's something incredibly liberating waking up the morning and realizing and that you don't need anyone's permission to feel good about who you are. That kind of freedom doesn't come with applause, titles, or even success. It comes from knowing, deep down, that who you are is already enough. That's the secret most people are too busy chasing approval to notice. And I'm telling you, once you stop looking out there for something that should be coming from in here, everything changes. We live in a world that's constantly screaming for our attention. Everyone has an opinion, everyone's got a comment, and everyone wants to tell you who you should be. You can post something online, and before you even blink, someone you've never met is dissecting your every word, your tone, your life. And it's so easy, so tempting to internalize that noise, to let those voices creep in and start rewriting the way you see yourself. But let me tell you, if you let the world write your script, you'll always be playing a role that isn't meant for you. What I've learned, sometimes the hard way, is that the most dangerous voice isn't the loudest critic in the room. It's the quiet one in your own head that repeats what those critics say. That little voice that says, maybe they're right. Maybe I'm not good enough. But here's the thing, that voice isn't yours. It's borrowed from every moment someone made you feel small. And it's time to return it. The moment you decide that your worth isn't up for public debate, you take your power back. That doesn't mean you won't hear the noise. It's always going to be there. It means the volume of that noise starts to matter less because your internal voice, the one grounded in truth, resilience, and self-respect, starts to speak louder. And when that voice leads, you stop reacting to every jab, every side eye, you can't. You just keep walking because you know who you are. When I was younger, I used to think that being validated by others meant I was on the right path. If people clap, I must be doing well. If they didn't, I questioned everything. But over time, I realized that applause is fickle. It comes and goes. Sometimes people cheer for you not because they love you, but because they love what you represent for now. And when that changes, so does their tune. If you rely on that to keep going, you'll be on a roller coaster that never stops. Trust me, it's exhausting. I started asking myself a different question. What do I think of me when the room is quiet? That's the moment of truth. Not when the spotlight is on. Not when people are clapping, but when you're alone with your thoughts and your reflection. Can you look at yourself and say, I like that person? If the answer is yes, that's your real success. That's your real peace. And no, it's not about arrogance. It's not about shutting everyone out. It's about discernment. It's about knowing who gets a seat at the table in your mind. Not every opinion deserves to come inside. Not every piece of feedback should shape your identity. It takes strength to listen without absorbing, to hear without shrinking. That's real power. When you build that kind of self-respect, something incredible happens. You become unshakable. Not because life gets easier, but because you get clear. You stop reacting and start choosing. Choosing how to move, who to trust, what to believe about yourself. And when people see that, they feel it. They see a person who isn't swayed by the crowd, who walks with quiet confidence. Not because they're pretending, but because they've already made peace who they are. And let me tell you, people will test that. They'll try to push your buttons, question your confidence, poke holes in your calm. But the best response, not anger, not defense, just consistency. Just live in a way that proves over and over again that your value isn't up for discussion, that you're not performing for anyone's acceptance. You're simply being. Because once you've built your foundation on internal truth, external noise just becomes background static. It might still be there, but it no longer has control. You listen to your own voice. You move on your own terms. And most of all, you love yourself, not in theory, but in practice, intentionally, quietly. And that right there is the secret. You become unbothered because you are enough, exactly as you are. You ever notice how tired you feel? not just physically, but mentally and emotionally, after a day of just existing in today's world. And it's not because you were lifting heavy things or solving world problems. No. It's because everything and everyone is constantly pulling at your attention, your time, your spirit. Social media, the news, people's opinions, conversations that go nowhere. It's like you're being drained and you don't even realize it until you're running on empty. Here's the truth most people don't want to admit: your energy is currency. It's more valuable than money, more powerful than status. And if you don't protect it, people will spend it for you. That's just how it works. The world doesn't pause to ask if you have the capacity to care about everything that's thrown your way. It just keeps throwing. The question is, what are you choosing to catch? There was a time when I felt like I had to respond to everything. Every text, every opinion, every little jab or passive-aggressive comment. I thought, if I don't speak up, they'll think I'm weak. If I don't clap back, I'm letting them win. But over time, I realized, what I'm winning? Stress actually winning. Anxiety, sleepless nights. Is that really the prize I'm chasing? I started to ask myself, is this worth my peace? And 90% of the time, the answer was no. That argument online, not worth it. That person who keeps poking at you to get a reaction, not worth it. That conversation that's just going in circles, fueled by ego instead of growth. Definitely not worth it. Every time I chose silence, I didn't feel like I was backing down. I felt like I was stepping up, protecting something sacred inside of me. Not everything deserves your energy. I can't say that enough. Not because you're better than anyone else, but because you finally realize your peace is too precious to be handed out like flyers. Some people are addicted to chores. Some people thrive on drama. And if you're not careful, they'll invite you into it, disguised as just talking, just venting, or just keeping it real. But once you're in that spiral, it's hard to climb out without some kind of damage. What helped me, and maybe this can help you too, is getting real clear on what fuels me and what drains me. I started paying attention. Certain people, certain environments, even certain habits. After I leave, I feel light, energized, clear. Others, I felt exhausted, confused, anxious. That's not coincidence. That's data. That's your spirit telling you something is off. Listen to it. You don't have to explain your boundaries to everyone. You don't need to give a TD talk every time you choose to walk away from something that doesn't serve you. Just do it. Quietly, consistently. And eventually, people get the message. You train the world how to treat you by the energy you protect, by the access you allow. And yes, some people might call you distant, cold, even arrogant, but that's fine. Let them talk. While they're talking, you'll be at peace. And that, my friend, is the goal. I'm not saying cut everybody off. This isn't about becoming emotionally unavailable. It's about choosing wisely. Choose who gets to sit at your table, who gets your full presence, who gets your time and your trust, because that's a privilege, not a given. And if you give it to the wrong people, they'll waste it. Or worse, they'll drain it and then blame you for being tired. Start creating space in your life where peace can breathe. That might mean muting some voices, literally and figuratively. That might mean saying no to that event, even if you don't have a valid excuse other than, I need rest. That might mean not responding to the message that triggers you. Because you know the rabbit hole it leads to. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. Energy is not infinite. And in a world that keeps trying to pull you in 100 directions, you've got to be deliberate. Be ruthless about what you allow in your space. Not out of fear, but out of deep self-respect. Out of an understanding that your call is not up for negotiation. That your attention is too valuable to be given away carelessly. Because once you start choosing peace on purpose, the noise around you gets quieter. Not because it disappears, but because it no longer matters. You've set the tone, you've taken control. You've stopped reacting and started preserving. And that's when you realize you weren't being unbothered by accident. You were being intentional. You know what I've learned in this loud, reactive world we live in? Silence is one of the most underrated strengths you can have. Everybody's rushing to say the next thing, to post the perfect comeback, to win arguments no one's even keeping score of. But silence, that's where the real power lies, because silence isn't weakness, it's control. It's choosing your battles. It's saying, I don't need to prove myself in this moment because I already know who I am. We've been conditioned to think that staying quiet means you've lost. That if you don't respond to disrespect, to criticism, to nonsense, you're somehow letting it slide. But let me ask you, slide into what? More drama, more noise, more wasted time and energy. I used to fall into that trap, thinking I had to respond to everything, had to correct every misunderstanding, had to explain myself until people got it. But the truth is, most people aren't even trying to understand you. They're just trying to pull you into their storm. You don't win by stepping into chaos. You win by keeping your peace while the chaos passes by. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a time to speak. It's a time to stand firm, to defend truth, to draw a line in the sand. But there's also a time to sit back and let people talk while you continue living. Some of the most powerful moments in my life came when I chose not to engage. Not because I didn't have something to say, but because I realized I didn't need to say it. That realization that you don't need to react to be powerful is a shift, a big one, because we've been taught that presence equals volume. That to be noticed. You have to be the loudest one in the room. But I've been in rooms where people didn't say much, and yet had everyone listening. Why? Because their energy spoke for them. But their silence, you made you pay attention. You didn't feel the need to question them because they were grounded. They weren't moved by noise. They were centered in truth. And that's what I strive for now. I don't need to be in every conversation. I don't need to defend my character to people who've already made up their minds. I don't need to respond to every disrespectful moment with retaliation. Because when you know yourself, truly there's nothing to prove. Silence becomes a shield, a statement. It says, I'm not here to entertain foolishness. I'm here to protect my peace. Sometimes the loudest voice in the room is the one that isn't speaking. Think about that. Because in a world where everybody's shouting, silence becomes disruptive in the best way. It makes people uncomfortable, curious, sometimes even angry, because they can't figure you out. They don't know if you're unaffected, unimpressed, or just uninterested. And that's okay. Let them guess. Your job isn't to be predictable. Your job is to be grounded. There's a certain clarity that comes from not reacting. When you give yourself that pause, that breath, you realize that not everything is worth your energy. You see situations for what they are, not what your emotions would have made them. That moment of silence gives you perspective, and that perspective saves you from unnecessary battles. I've seen people lose their peace over something someone said in a comment section. I've watched people unravel because of one side eye in a meeting, and I get it. We all want to be respected. We all want to feel seen. But sometimes the most powerful response is to keep moving like it didn't touch you. Not because you're ignoring it, because you've chosen not to absorb it. Every time you choose silence instead of chaos, you're telling the world, I'm in control of me. You don't dictate my mood. You don't get to pull me off course. That's what staying unbothered really means. Not that you don't feel, but that you've mastered how you respond. You've learned to pause, to observe, to conserve your energy for what truly matters. And the beauty of silence, it doesn't mean you've backed down. It means you've leveled up. It means you've decided that your peace is louder than any argument, that your purpose is bigger than any petty moment, that your life doesn't need to be a performance for other people's approval. So when the world gets loud, and it will, when people test your patience, when opinions start flying like arrows, just remember silence isn't the absence of strength. It's the proof of it. You ever feel like you can't hear yourself think? Like everywhere you go, your TV, your conversations, there's noise. Constant, unrelenting noise. People talking over each other, headlines screaming for your attention, opinions flying at you like darts. And in the middle of all of that, your own voice, the one that knows you best, starts to fade into the background. That right there is why building a mental sanctuary isn't just helpful, it's necessary. We build homes to protect us from the outside world. Walls, doors, roofs. But what about our minds? What have we built in there to protect us from the chaos outside? Because the world's going to slow down. The noise isn't going anywhere. But if you don't find a way to create stillness inside yourself, you're going to spend your life reacting to everything and never choosing anything. There came a point in my life where I realized that peace was something I stumbled into. It was something I had to fight for. I had to be intentional about it. I had to make space for it. I started to understand that if I didn't create a mental environment where I could breathe, where I could check in with myself, then I'd always be lost in someone else's agenda, their drama, their urgency. So I started treating my inner world like sacred ground. I stopped letting everything and everyone have access to it. I built rituals, small ones, simple ones, but powerful. I take 10 minutes in the morning before looking at my phone. I sit in silence and just breathe. I write down what I was feeling, not what I was supposed to feel, but what was really there. I stopped running from myself and started listening. And in that silence, I found clarity. It doesn't take a mountain retreat. It doesn't take incense or some grand escape. It takes you choosing you on purpose every single day, taking the time to sit still, to ask yourself how you're doing before the world tells you how you should feel, to unplug from the feed and reconnect with your truth. Sometimes that sanctuary looks like journaling. Sometimes it looks like going for a walk with no music, no podcast, just nature and your thoughts. And sometimes it means closing your eyes for 5 minutes, just focusing on your breath. And sometimes it means doing nothing at all, just being. Letting your mind settle, letting the dust clear so you can actually see what's going on inside. We're so used to filling every moment with stimulation that the idea of quiet feels uncomfortable. But that discomfort, that's just unfamiliarity. Most people haven't spent enough time with themselves to feel at home in their own head. But once you do, once you build that space, you stop being tossed around by the noise. You start recognizing what's yours and what isn't. What's truth and what's just background static. The world will always try to rent space in your head with fear, with doubt, with distraction. But you don't have to lease it out. You can choose who and what gets in, that's your right. And the more you protect that space, the stronger your foundation becomes. You move differently. You speak with more clarity. You react less and reflect more. You're not just surviving, you're leading yourself. And here's what happens when you build that sanctuary and the storms still come, but they don't shake you the same way. You've got roots now. You got a place inside that's steady, grounded, peaceful. You can go there whenever you need to. It's yours. Untouched by the world, untouched by judgment. Just you and your truth. That's why when people say, how are you so calm in the middle of all this? You smile. Not because you don't feel the pressure, but because you've done the work. You've built the space. You've given yourself what the world can't, to inner stillness. So no matter how loud it gets out there, no matter how messy or unpredictable things may be, you've got a place to return to. A place where peace isn't a reward for escaping life, but a result of choosing yourself within it. And when you learn to live from that place, not just visit it, but truly live from it, then you become unbothered. Not because life stopped being chaotic, but because you stopped letting the chaos live in you.